for Games Aid. Here we go.
Sweet. Thank you. Oh, hang on. Don't applaud yet. You haven't seen the talk. You're given money in advance for something you have no idea of the quality of it. First of all, thanks to everybody who's came in. This is quite a good turnout. Quick introduction for anybody who has not met me before. There's one or two people I think here who do know me, but a lot of people won't. My name's Tommy Thompson. I'm an artificial intelligence researcher who likes to specialize particularly in games, mostly because I have an unhealthy infatuation with both of those particular topics. I'm actually a lecturer in computer science at the University of Derby, and also the super science overlord, which is my unofficial moniker, with my team at Table Flip Games. If you actually got time, our game Sure Footing, which is in a very early alpha build, which is all about me continually trying to make games that use some sort of AI technique that I'm interested in. It's currently out there playable. It's very colourful as soon as you go out there, so there's a wonderful shameless plug just for myself. Also, kind of the reason why I'm here is that I've become sort of a YouTuber and blogger of sorts over the last sort of 12 months, where I like to talk about artificial intelligence and how it works in games. And I host this over on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/AI in games. And I also have a Facebook page dedicated to it as well, facebook.com/AI in games. And, you know, during this all came about. I'm not someone who likes to talk an awful lot, contrary to what you might think as I stand here in front of you. But the idea was I wanted to talk about why AI and games are amazing, both individually and combined. And this kind of follows on a couple of different topics. And I look at it in kind of, you know, two different main routes, really. One of them is kind of deconstructing AI in commercial video games. So how does the AI in, say, Left 4 Dead work? How does it work in the Halo series? What did they do over in Fear? Halo 2 and 3, the Batman Arkham series. And so that's one thing that I spend a lot of time doing, is I actually find out the techniques that were adopted, and for people who are not familiar with it, I do my best to try and introduce you to it on some level. The other thing that I like to do is I also look at AI research in video games. Now, as researchers, we love looking at this sort of stuff because AI is actually an interesting problem domain games are, a really interesting problem domain for AI because games are designed as popcorn for the brain. We're trying to have fun, we're trying to enjoy ourselves, getting immersed in these experiences, and often this requires an awful lot of complex mental processing that we, as humans, have a habit of taking for granted. So it's like, well, can't we get AI to replicate that process? And recently I've been doing talks about AI-driven PCG systems, player modeling research that took place in Battlefield 3, and also things like AI competitions in the worlds of, say, Super Mario and Ms. Pac-Man. And apparently they're pretty good. I don't know who wrote that bit, but anyway. So before we kind of get into this, I want to kind of talk about AI's application in video games. And when you kind of go back over the kind of days of old, AI was always built, say, like back in Space Invaders and stuff. We're trying to inject challenge into our games, but it doesn't seem to get that much love. I'm sort of an AI optimist, and I like to think that we can give it a little bit more love, particularly in the likes of graphics. We often push graphics as the next big reason to go and plonk down several £100s for another console or get that hardware upgrade in your PC that it desperately needs, which, I'm not that particularly fussed about it. I'm more interested in what we can do in game design. And the thing is that we've got to remember, as we go into all this talk, that I'm not naive about this. That when we are looking at AI applications in commercial games, particularly in AAA titles, it's very hard to actually just maintain what we're so used to as gaming continues to evolve. And that's because last year's AI won't necessarily work in this year's AI. And I deliberately picked a background image of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare to reiterate the fact that when you've got the AI that existed in, say, Black Ops 2, the recently announced Black Ops 3, all of the Call of Duty series before it, the level of agency that Advanced Warfare provides you then means that the bots can't be the same bots they were before if you want them to use all these techniques that you've now got, because you've got this exosuit, you want to fly around, you want to feel cool. And if you just plonk in the old AI, that's not going to work, because things are changed. The problem's different, but also things like the engine might have changed. They might be using a different game engine. We might have upgraded from Unity 4 to 5, Unreal 3 to 4. Problems are getting larger as well. Game worlds are becoming more expansive. And the thing is that you can't just drop it in there. And we also then have a habit of going back and rebuilding things to try and make them better. So even just trying to make the same kind of basic AI that we had in a game like 2 years ago in a bigger problem instance, you've got to figure out how to generalize that and abstract that to work in this bigger game. But that's none of this is really what I'm actually here to talk about. I'm trying to move away from that. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of acknowledge this key point early on. What I really wanted to talk about is, like, when we actually adopt AI in games, what does it try and facilitate? What do we use it for? And, you know, does this kind of enable the player? Does it actually add some sort of element to their experience? Do we interact with it? And perhaps more importantly for me than anything else is I like to see how players respond to AI in games as part of that gameplay. And how do they resonate with it in a way that's beyond, well, I'm about to kind of get into that now. Because I'm getting kind of energetic, I'm a little bit edgy, caffeine's running a little bit low, but I'll get another shot once this talk's over. But depending on my mood, and my mood can usually swing on an hourly basis, I kind of perceive these things either very cynically or very optimistically. Now, I'm not someone who wants to spend an awful lot of time in this setup, in this environment, at this festival, with so many really enthusiastic and some good-looking people. You guys over in the corner there, you know who I'm talking about. And I just don't want to be saying nasty things at things like this. So what I did was I actually prepared a video just so that I can shut up for a minute. So check this out.
Warning, a nuclear missile has been launched. Unit lost.
So I put that video in for two reasons. One, I stopped talking for a minute. You get a reprieve. I get some oxygen. But also there was kind of a point I'm trying to make. And I want you to think about, watching that video, what was the key kind of recurring point that we're coming back to every time? Every one of those games actually used an AI in some fashion or another. But what I'm interested in is how we actually deployed it in terms of the game's design and what was its function. Now, this isn't meant to be some sort of damning critique of the games industry, nor is it actually a reflection of some of the really amazing work in some of those games. And also, it's not me turning around going, oh my God, I hate these games, these are terrible, I want better games that are more about AI, because 90% of that's my own game footage, so I'd be a massive hypocrite. And certainly the amount of time I put, particularly in Mario Kart and Titanfall of late, yeah, these games are amazing, what's wrong with it? But ultimately, non-player characters, non-player character AI, it seems to suffer a really kind of horrible fate in games. And I was kind of thinking about, like, well, if I'm an AI, what happens to me? So I jotted down a couple of them really quickly. We're prone to getting beaten up. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, you name it. We get shot in the arm. Okay, cool, we can probably survive that. What else we got in here? Crushed by a robot. Oh yeah, yep, certainly a bit of Titanfall going on there. Green shells. Pesky green shells. Shot in the leg. Well, yeah, I suppose that's also the same as being shot. How many of these did I actually can't remember. Blown up by a BFG 9000. And that's a very dated reference. Sadly, that's only really going to appeal to anybody over the age of about 20 to 25 in this room. It's Doom. That man right there, he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, we get really a bad habit of just going, yeah, we're going to put AI in a game so we can beat it up, we can shoot it, we can run it over, we can blast it into a million pieces, because that enables the gameplay experience. Don't get me wrong, I do love a bit of that. It ends up, there's this kind of weird irony that AI NPCs are sort of like the folly of man's hubris. Because ultimately, like, mankind's got this really bad habit that whenever we master some sort of science, we then decide to build things as a massive stroke of our own ego. Looking at engineering feats, building giant bridges, we build massive buildings and go, oh my God, look at this. We've mastered how to do this. We are so cool. Now, I find that quite ironic because artificial intelligence is the first thing that's ever came along, and it turns around after the fact and it says to us, no, really, you're the idiot. I'm smarter than you now. Sure, we're not got to Terminator future or anything like that. Fingers crossed, touch wood. But I find it kind of funny that in video games in particular, because that's all about, in series, games are often about empowerment. Games are about making us feel good, feeling good about ourselves. We like to pick on AI. It's sort of like beating up a kid because you think that he's actually smarter than you. And a lot of that actually comes down to that the games industry is kind of focused on violence. Now, that can be cartoon violence, it can be quite extreme violence, but that's because it was the easiest interaction we could establish between non-player characters and characters. Right, what can I do in order to make the player feel better? I'll blow it up with a bazooka! Yeah, man, that'll work. Blowing it up with a bazooka, I get that sense of empowerment, we get rid of the AI, and then the player feels some sort of sense of progression. But what that sort of does is it often leaves AI in a sort of contrived design space. And yeah, I don't know. Like I say, this isn't really me kind of going, we need to get away from all this, because I love all this stuff. I'm just thinking about how can we make AI resonate with players in a more interesting way? And that's when cynicism is over. I'm going to be a bit more optimistic now. That's the only time I'm going to skip. But you get, that's kind of how I'm feeling in my head, okay? Just not in the floor, because the next person's going to be out ready for it, so I'm going to vine that the next time he does it? No. Okay. So, an optimistic view, being more optimistic about this. What I'm thinking about is same types of games, same types of genres, same concepts, or potentially brand new ones, I'll come back to that. But we lace AI into the design to do something that's really interesting and gets you thinking or actually emoting in your games in a way that you haven't thought about before. Now, this isn't some highfalutin, oh wow, we could do this in like 10, 20 years, wouldn't this be amazing? This is more, we've actually been doing this for about 10 years now, or longer, because some really smart designers picked up on this a long time ago. And I'm going to kind of go over a couple of really good examples and then sort of talk about what else we could do. So I'll start off with one that's quite popular. Anytime you talk about a Valve game, people start eating this up. It's like, oh God, we love Valve. Valve's so great. Half-Life 3 confirmed. And the thing about Left 4 Dead in particular is that it has the AI director. And the AI director, how many people have played Left 4 Dead? Let's see, get a show of hands. Good, we've got some Left 4 Dead players in the room, well done. And Left 4 Dead's just a first-person shooter, right? Standard first-person shooter mechanics. We've got a few extra mechanics in there to focus on team play, but one of the things that this game does so well, and shameless plug, I did a video about this if you ever want to find out more, that the game actually does dynamic player modeling. It's paying attention to how stressed out you are as you play the game. The more things are happening around you, the director begins to pick on one of you and it goes, you're not stressed out enough, mate. Zombies. What about, he doesn't, special infected, throw a boomer at him, see what happens. And it's trying to get that stress level point up to a peak where you're all going, oh my God, there's things everywhere! And that final surge of zombies comes out that cupboard. And then you, oh my God, and you fight them all off. And if you've managed to pull it off, the first thing everyone does is, first of all, you pick on the guy that ran off. Where are you? Where are you going? What the hell, man? Get back here. And everyone else isn't like, you're doing this while someone's trying to put a bandage on your leg. And that's all an AI system running under the hood, which is driving that experience. And that's what makes you guys get so flaked out and so annoyed. And the AI even picks up on some of this, because people that decide to, and here's a little spoiler for you, see that guy, see if you've got someone who plays Left 4 Dead with you, and he runs off on his own, kick him out of the group. Because the director can get moody. And what it sometimes does is, what it does is after that big peak, it goes into a little rest phase, and it's going, right, heal up, reload your guns, chill out for a bit, I'll throw maybe a zombie or two at you to keep you interested. And then it sees that one guy going off on his own. And it's, oi, chappa, what are you doing? And that's when you annoy it. And it goes, right, that's it. No, you're not getting a break anymore. Break's over. Zombies. And it's him. It's that guy or girl. They're doing it. Sort it out. They're the problem. And I love that tension, that unease, that frustration amongst people. It's all being driven off an AI system under the hood, and most people don't even realize it's happening. Spelunky, oh God, yeah, I've talked enough about that today. But yeah, I talked about Spelunky this morning, but what's so good about Spelunky? Spelunky's another two-dimensional platformer, classical kind of mechanics and tropes that we've seen for many a year. But it's a roguelike, of course, so you've only got one life to do the whole thing, so that you can't screw it up. But the fact that it's running on a procedural generation system, and we've already heard a little bit about procedural generation today, and bear in mind that this is, of course, an intelligent system, it's an AI. It's building new levels every time. The probability of ever playing the same level twice is incredibly small. And the thing is that means you can't become comfortable. Because every time you go back and play it again, you don't know what the map's going to look like. So we go back in, and this is ultimately a massive factor for replayability. One of the things I like is it actually injects a sense of character into the game. Spelunky is quite unique, and it's got quite a fond following, I would say, among a lot of other games. And a lot of it comes down to how these design mechanics work with this kind of fear of the unknown that comes out of the PCG system. And also, if you pay attention to the PCG system enough, you can begin to understand how it works, and then begin to figure out how you can pass through levels faster. Now, I'm thinking about it purely in a scientific perspective, but I've often been curious as to, when you look at speedrunners who play this game, that they have some sort of subconscious understanding of how that system's working, because they're exploiting that so they can get through the game as fast as they can. They probably don't see things the same way I do, but I find that really, really fascinating in how they've actually built some sort of relationship or understanding with that system. Borderlands. Any Borderlands fans in the room? Hey, awesome. I've played far too much Borderlands than I care to admit. And the thing that I find really interesting about Borderlands is that it's really just a story about a man or a woman and their favorite gun. It's not really about, horses made entirely out of diamonds, or guys with like funny faces on them, or guys that walk away from explosions without looking at them or anything like that. Sorry, for anybody who's never played it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But Borderlands itself is really silly. And the thing that I actually think works really well for this is because the actual game is really just about your relationship with your guns. So in Borderlands, every gun is procedurally generated, every shield is procedurally generated. All the items that you can equip on your character, procedurally generated. If I remember right, the original Borderlands has somewhere in the region of 15 million guns in it, according to the PCG system. Now the thing is, about 14.9999999 million of them are rubbish. But part of that journey as the player is to kind of find a new gun and you go, ooh, what's this? This is rubbish. Oh, another gun. Here we go. What's this? Oh, that's rubbish. What are you looking for, man? Check this out. I've got a shotgun that fires lightning missile rounds, and it does so much damage that I can just turn anything into an arterial spray just by staring at it long enough. This is my gun. This is my jam. And the thing about I think a lot of the story mode and the missions and everything that's behind it is it's deliberately silly. Because if it was all serious, if it was very kind of like Call of Duty, ooh-rah sort of thing, you would get really bored very quickly with it because it's the same monotonous, alpha, male, dominant, power trip fantasy thing. Whereas the game's just going, look, this whole thing is just really stupid, right? But you want another, bazooka that shoots just like death from above and does like 12 million damage or whatever, or an SMG that just fires nothing but fire bullets, and it fires like 400 bullets in 5 seconds. You're like, yeah, totally, I want one of them, that sounds great. So I like that, we've got all the AI in there for the non-player characters, but like that whole procedural generation system is the crux of that game, and without it, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as successful as it is. Another awesome example of really good AI-based game design. That way. Oh, too far. Yes, Titanfall. Titanfall. I love Titanfall. Oh, back. I love Titanfall. We're not ready to talk about Forza yet, spoiler. I love Titanfall, despite the fact that it is ultimately the power fantasy I was just belittling a slide ago. That it's, very much, it's built by the people who used to make Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. It's now Respawn Entertainment that are working on it. But the thing that I love about Titanfall is how it actually puts AI in the game often to empower people who are perhaps scared to try these sorts of games. Now, if you've never played Call of Duty online, what usually happens is, first of all, a 12-year-old boy will say something really, really derogatory about your mother's lineage, and then afterwards, they'll then probably beat you up. And I'm getting a bit older. I'm 31 now, So I'm not quite as fast as I used to be. And I like to think it's because of my age, it's not because I'm rubbish. And particularly there, one of the things I like is that they introduce all this AI. So when you play it, it's actually only, I think it's like 8v8 or something on each side. The pilots, and they're the people that can drive the Titans, that's you, but there's also a lot of other soldiers and grunts running around in the map. Why are they so useful? Well, on two fronts. One, you can empower weaker players, because they go, oh look, there's a guy right there, he's not saw me. He's dead, I killed 3 of them, I feel awesome. Sure, you might not have killed another human player, but you're getting that empowerment off the fact that we're actually using, ultimately what I was just complaining about a few slides ago in a really interesting context. But also they're strategic assets, particularly if you're playing the primary game mode attrition, where killing bots also gives you score. So you farm the bots up when there's no pilots around to kill. And then subsequently you can also deploy your Titan, but you don't have to get into the thing. So they always advertise that when the thing comes down, it lands on the ground, it looks really cool, you get in your robot, and then you start fighting with the robot. Well, why bother? Sometimes I don't even use the robot because everybody's looking at the robot. I can run on foot, and I can tell it to go into its patrolling AI mode to follow me. It's like, come on, after me. So I deploy my cloak, I'm invisible, I'm running towards the enemy, everyone's going, oh my god, look, it's a giant robot, and they don't see me coming up. You wipe all them out, and then you feel really good about yourself, and the whole time the robot's just... Also, every now and then, the Titans will kill a player in the most hilarious fashion possible. It's really good. I should have kept like a replay or something for this particular talk. Yeah, next up, Forza. Now, Forza's really interesting because the one thing that sticks in my mind is when they announced Forza 5 for the Xbox One, the announcement that they made was that this was the death of AI in games because we've now got the new Drivatar. Now the thing is that the Drivatar actually runs on what's called behavior modeling. We're actually modeling players' behavior, and then it deploys that up onto the Azure cloud, and it tries to learn from your player data offline while you're not playing the game. It's actually more AI than the old AI that they were telling us is no longer relevant. It's like, and it was actually developed at Microsoft Cambridge. That's the research that they deployed. They actually tested it out there and they went, we can get this to work now. Let's put it in a game. And I think this is really awesome because it's doing this whole process of trying to understand on a kind of beat-to-beat basis and also on a kind of abstract level how you play, how you race. And then it tries to see if it can find a way. I've created a bot that effectively mimics you or is sort of this nice kind of polished up representation of who and what you are as a player. And I think that's really, really interesting in that you can then have offline play where the Drivatars are racing against you. So you have this AI that's sort of representative of your mate. Sure, you can still pick on him later on when the Drivatar beats you, because you can go, well, I'm going to blame you, because the AI is actually based on you, and you're I'm not going to say it, because there's children present, and we're being recorded. Hi, Internet. Getting up to probably the last couple. Shadow of Mordor is really interesting to me, based largely on the Nemesis system. Now, if you're not familiar, what happens is that throughout this series, you're going around Mordor and you're killing all these orcs and trying to kind of get to the top of the food chain, as it were. Now, the thing is that your actions subsequently have consequence, and the particular behaviors of certain characters, the social structures that occur within that game, and subsequently the histories that emerge, are coming around as a result of an AI system that's running under the hood. And so a character comes up to you and they have a beef with you. And for me, that was really, really empowering. Is like, oh, it's not just that's just bad guy number 6 who's here to kill me. That's bad guy number 6, and he's got a particular bone to pick with me because I actually did something to him and I annoyed him. And he now feels like that this is kind of like rubbed against him and he's not happy about it. So you're getting this kind of unique story, and it's not as broad or as expansive as you might think, but it adds this kind of unique flavor to it, and it's certainly an interesting selling point for that game. And lastly, Alien Isolation. How many people play Alien Isolation in the room? How many? Oh, there we go. Cool. We got a couple of people. Awesome. I still haven't finished this game. I absolutely love it. And an awful lot of this talk is built entirely around my strange emotional attachment to this game. Because one of the things to me that really sells it is it's the first game I can think of in a long time where a AAA title that says, oh yeah, if this AI is broke, this entire experience is ruined. The actual selling point, the big selling point of this game that drives you to go out and buy it is there is a big scary xenomorph that's floating around somewhere on this space station, it's on the Sevastopol, and it's out to get you. Nobody else, you. And that was really interesting, not to mention the fact that it's essentially role reversal, because you're still playing a first-person, it's essentially a first-person shooter where shooting does nothing. In fact, the one thing you should never do in Alien Isolation is try and shoot the thing. Bad idea. And it's this wonderful culmination of so many different facets, not just the AI, and I think it's kind of important to point this out, that the environment art and notably certainly the sound design help bring that character together, not to mention the character animations as well. That thing looks like it's alive and it scares you. Now I've got a general principle, I only play Alien Isolation after 10 o'clock at night in the dark because I want to be immersed in that experience. And certainly that lack of knowledge of where that thing is very difficult. And I was, in fact, just talking about this recently, and one of the things that we were discussing is that how it differs from the films in the sense that, you know, you're not part of that experience. And you don't have to worry about where did the xenomorph go. You're just waiting for the next scary bit in the movie. But because you're in the movie in this point, you go, oh God, where is it? I have it, where did it, oh. But also, more importantly, your own preconceptions. Now, I've not met anybody yet, and somebody in this room might actually be the one person that disproves this, that most people who play Alien Isolation have at least watched one of the Alien movies. So you have some preconception of what the xenomorph is. You've seen it kill enough people to understand it's really, really nasty, it's really, really creepy, it's really, really scary, but this time it's out to get you. And that's what I love about this. And the thing is, I mean, like I say, I'm an AI person, and I, by and large, I don't understand it on a very coarse detail what they've actually done because Creative Assembly haven't really discussed it yet, but I have a very general understanding of how it's working. It's probably behavior tree driven with some sort of smart director overseeing the gameplay, and it knows when to drop that xenomorph back in and when to try and freak you out. But I am terrified of this, and that's what I love about it, is that despite all this, and despite the clinical part of my brain going, well, it's just using this, and it's going to deploy this in this context, that's being overridden by the, where is it, 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 where is it? Fantastic stuff. I absolutely love it. So, caffeine rush is about to run down soon, as well as the sugar. There's something really, really ironic about this. And I hope that at least my energy levels are kind of conveying this. And at some point, one of you goes, yeah, you know what, that guy's actually got a point. Is that AI is used, when used effectively in games, it actually creates a way to capture and exploit our own emotions and certain aspects of players' personality, your feelings and everything. Whether you can get, excited or curious or happy or scared or angry based upon how smart that design is and how you've actually deployed AI in your games. And it's kind of ironic if you think about it, given that AI is this evil clinical thing, which apparently we're all supposed to be scared of. I'm never afraid of an AI system. I'm only ever afraid of the AI, of the person that actually turned it on. Just remember, Skynet only blew up the Russians because the Americans said that was fair game. Terminator, keep up. Okay, so as we're kind of getting towards the end here, so well, what can we bring in future games? If we kind of continually focus on how we as players kind of engage and resonate with AI systems, what types of games can we make? And we're starting to do this already. Some very wonderful examples already, but there's a lot of potential to explore, and we were actually discussing this, myself and a group of other AI researchers not that long ago, of like, well, how do we interact with our AI in our games? So beating up, hurting, killing, yeah, I've kind of beaten that point into the ground. Everyone sort of understands the point I'm making there. We're also quite good at opposing AI. Well, we're not actually going to kill it this time, but we're still going to beat it in some fashion. You're playing chess, drafts, poker, any sort of board game where it doesn't actually result in you, putting a gun to its head. Managing AI is also quite interesting, notably the likes of Civilization, Sims, Crusader Kings, Command and Conquer, etc. That you have these little kind of simple enough bots and you can tell them to do things, and then you can build more kind of grander strategies as a result of how you manipulate them and deploy them in certain contexts. Escape. How do you actually try and escape AI? And excuse me, certainly Alien Isolation crops up as one of those few examples that I came across that not only decides to sort of adopt that kind of approach, but does it really, really, really well. Observation. how do we watch AI to solve puzzles and tasks? And two games that immediately came to my mind were Third Eye Crime, which is it's an indie game where you run around, and it's a sort of stealth game. You're trying to avoid detection from players, but you're trying to see what those bots are doing and knowing when to make that move. How do we cooperate with AI? Could we actually make gameplay experiences that you actually work with it in order to achieve something? The one I always come back to is imagine playing Portal 2 co-op, except you have no friends. And Valve go, don't worry about it, guys. I've got a little AI in here that you can play the game with you. Now, it's not because I don't have friends, but when I started playing Portal 2 in co-op, I immediately thought, why can't I play this with a bot? And started trying to deconstruct that problem. 2 pads at the same time, it's really, really awkward trying to play Portal 2 at the same time across 2 pads. But I was trying to look at that problem and go, well, how would you get another system to kind of encourage you? Because it's also going to be trying to kind of educate you as you do it. It's going to try and educate you to mechanics. And if you have one of the 2 robots in Portal 2 coming up and it shoots a portal on the wall and it's going, and the whole time you're kind of looking, right, and it goes there, where does it go? Then that other portal comes. What are you trying to tell me? And now it sounds like you're talking to a dog. What are you telling me, boy? He's down the well? Okay. Throw the portal down, right, okay. And I think that'd be really interesting as well, and how can we actually not only get that system to operate, but also subsequently find a way to help you in the event that you're struggling to kind of understand the point it's trying to make. This is actually a quick screenshot, and this was coming back to the notion of observing AI and then trying to find ways to play within it. So off the back of this, we were actually at a research retreat a couple of months ago, and myself and a number of other colleagues, we started jamming games that evening. And we were like, you know what, let's make a game. Let's make a game about one of these ideas, and let's see if we can get it to work. And so this is a game that we threw together. Myself, Adam Smith, Alex Zook, and Michael Cook. Michael Cook, who's in fact just down at Goldsmiths in London. And this is a game that we made up called Contrabot. And what happens in Contrabot is that you are a smuggler. You're actually trying to smuggle items, packages into this sort of evil authoritative system, kind of dystopia. And the smuggler here is waiting for your packages to get passed in from the left to the right. Now what we need to do is when we're putting it through this sort of customs gate, is we have to have some sort of stamp put on it to tell us what it is. Now the thing is that this guy's only going to steal certain packages based upon what he expects your code to look like when you pass it through. But in the middle, we actually have this woman here, and she's actually the inspector. And what she's doing is she's going to try and figure out what our kind of key or what our code is. What's our secret code that we're using to smuggle packages into the system, into that city. And what she does is she learns over time. Now this is actually just using a very, very simple learning algorithm where that AI gradually becomes more and more suspicious over time until eventually it becomes so suspicious that you can't get anything past her. She just goes, no, right, that's it. Anything you try and put in, I'm going to take it off the line and see if it's a bomb that's inside it. So we were trying to pass in, so we'd pass in this package here, and this is the stamp that we've put on it, and it'll come through here, and either if it doesn't match with her suspected codes, she'll go, it's fine. Or with a very small probability, she'll pick it up and go, hey, what's going on in here? Bombs. And immediately, if she sees that there's a bomb in there, she will update her own matrix, which looks, again, similar to that, and she'll begin to color in certain squares based upon where her suspicions are. And of course, at the same time, he's trying to figure out what code you're using, so he knows when to pick up the package. So we didn't spend a tremendous amount of time on this, but already we saw like this kind of fun element where you're trying to make sure you sneak a package by her, but you're trying to make sure that he picks it up. And then trying to get them to pay attention to what you're doing and trying to deceive her. And again, this is just sort of like a simple example, and we threw it together in a couple of hours. But you could do something really, really rich with this if you kind of push the boat out a little bit more. Lastly, some other points, can we co-create? And there's actually some really early stage research, well, not early stage, but there's actually quite a few years of research going into this area now, where if I've got a tool and I start building something in a game, could the AI work with me to do it? And I'll point out particularly there was some wonderful research by a fellow called Antonios Liapis, who is now based in Malta. And he was working on something called Sentient Sketchbook. And it's a system where you could start building maps for real-time strategy games. And while you're in the middle of building the map, there's a separate AI system at the side, kind of trying to figure out what you're doing and what your creative process is. and then subsequently goes, all right, so you've made this. And then it starts showing you alternatives at the side. And it goes, well, I've also suggested that. What about this? Do you like this? Do you think this is a good map? And every now and then you're going to go, hey, look at that. That's actually really cool. And you'll drag it into the main editor. And then what the system does is it goes, oh, it picked one of mine. Why? What was so interesting about what I'm doing that they've decided to take that over in here and So what's so interesting about that in terms of how is your perspective in your own mind, but also in terms of the intricacies of that particular map that it had built? It's like, well, why did you like that one over these two? What was so interesting about that? You know, nurturing artificial intelligence, like Pokemon with personality. We're so happy to continue to play the evil cockfight that is Pokemon. Such a cute and furry cockfight, but one nonetheless. And you deploy your Pokemon out. Now, what happens if those Pokemon have mood swings? They actually develop their own personalities. And you go, Pikachu, I choose you. And Pikachu gets out and he goes, oh, I'm exhausted. I've been doing this for hours. And you know what? I don't feel like I'm appreciated. Open the ball up. I'm getting back in. You're like, hang on a minute. You're my Pokemon. No. You're my catcher, okay? You're my trainer. You understand how this works? So, you know, having a really moody Pikachu, and that wouldn't really help. Certainly one of the things I really I'm considering about is admiration and how you look at certain systems and go, oh my God, look at what this is generating. And two notable examples that come to mind. I mean, one, we've seen No Man's Sky and the trailers that have been pushed out for that. And it is a really rich and interesting environment that they're building. And I saw a talk by Hazel McKendrick, who's one of the developers on the game a few months ago, and they were talking about the systems. It's all procedurally generated, and it builds entire star systems that you can go and visit. And they're saying all this kind of fundamental math, so it all builds together. And it's actually this one huge system that all comes together and builds these really, really lush and vibrant environments. And it's just mind-blowing. I love it. You know, again, I understand the science behind it, but I can't help but admire what it generates. And you know, also I would like to point, a special point out to Ultima Ratio Regum, which in fact was just the preceding talk that we just had here. Mark Johnson was talking about his work. Now, Mark, I only actually saw his work the first time, again a few months ago at a talk, and it blew my mind. I understand what it's doing, I understand the system, but he's like, oh yeah, I've got all these cities, and then you go into the city, and it's got these different districts, and then you go in there, then you can go to the library, and you can pick up a book, and you learn the book, and it's got this whole history, and then you can go down to the graveyard, and there's the guy that died, who they mentioned in the book, and there's like his family crest, then his whole family tree, and the whole time he's explaining this, I'm just going, wow. Imagine then there's going to be a game around this? Wow, that's amazing. So again, like it becomes part of that process, and you're not even thinking about it. You're just going, "Wow, this is really cool. Look at all these books. I'm not going to read all these. It's not like Skyrim. So much stuff. Where did this all come from?" And then someone says to you, "Oh, that was an AI system." Okay. Lastly, judging, and I couldn't really think of a good example for judging AI off the top of my head. And then I had this weird thought about 4 hours ago. Imagine watching Dancing on Ice, or now that's the one I could think of. I don't watch television. There's also the other one where they're in the ballroom. Anyone tell me what that's called again? Strictly Come Dancing. That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, so imagine they get Strictly Come Dancing. Now the thing is, if they make an official Strictly Come Dancing game, you'll be one of the dancers. And it'll be some horrible rhythm game where you're trying to make sure you've got all your dance moves in the right place at the right time. Imagine you play one of those really awkward, egocentric judges at the end. And, you know, trying to make sure that you maintain the appeal of the audience and kind of maintaining the audience interest in yourself, and you don't get kicked off the show because they don't like you because you're pulling a Simon Cowell or something like that. I don't watch TV, but I'm not completely oblivious to, like, you know, culture. Where you play as the judges and you're going, yeah, you know what? Like, that was all right, but it wasn't amazing. And then whether or not that AI actually takes that on board, and then you watch, like, the following week when some tragic soap opera actor or actress is then trying to relearn so they can be better for the following week. And whether or not they're taking on board the input of the player. Now, that's actually a game I would play. Strangely. I might even have to start watching like Dancing on Ice or Strictly Come Dancing just to kind of get in the mood for it. But there you go. Anyway, on that note, I'll just kind of wrap up. Just a kind of quick overview. Like I say, I like to talk about this stuff a lot, and I'm certainly going to open up to questions if we have time. If you ever want to see any of the other stuff I've got, there's my links once again to my website, and also hit me up on Twitter. It's Untitled Chapter, but there's underscores between it, and also I spell it as if Arnie said it. So it's quite phonetic. And ultimately, thank you very much. I really appreciate there's quite a few people in here, which is really awesome. And happy to do any Q&A right after. And don't forget that this, like all the other talks, you can give towards Games Aid as a result of these talks, because Norwich is actually trying to raise money for it at justgiving.com/Norwich Gaming Festival. And there are really, really nice looking people going around with buckets full of pennies. But yes, thank you very much.